It all started with a question that no one dared ask out loud. What really happened in Cannes before Meghan Markle became a royal, before the fairy tale wedding, before the tiaras and palace walls? Picture this: the red carpet, flashing cameras, Hollywood elites sipping champagne, whispers of deals and secrets floating like smoke through the summer night. Everyone was watching, but no one could see everything. Until now. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine the scene: the Cannes Film Festival, one of the most glamorous and cutthroat stages in the world. Celebrities arrived in glittering gowns, men in perfectly tailored tuxedos, the air thick with ambition, envy, and the intoxicating scent of possibility. But behind that facade, hidden from the photographers, from the journalists, and even from Meghan's closest allies, there were moments captured, moments that MI6 would later claim were of interest to the highest levels of security. Moments that could shatter the public perception of one of the most scrutinized women in the world. You're probably wondering, why would MI6 even be interested in Meghan Markle? After all, she was just an actress, navigating Hollywood like so many before her. But there's a difference between celebrity gossip and something that could pose a threat to national security. Or at least that's what the intelligence community would later argue. What they uncovered in Cannes was not just a scandal. It was a puzzle piece in a story that stretches from the glittering beaches of the French Riviera to the ornate halls of Buckingham Palace. And it's a story that no one is prepared to forget. Consider this. In the first few moments of meeting Meghan Markle, Hollywood insiders described her as poised, charming, ambitious, but also fiercely strategic. She knew how to network, how to place herself in the right rooms at the right times. She understood the currency of influence. But what if the price she paid for that influence was far higher than anyone imagined? What if the interactions that seemed innocent, or even glamorous, were being recorded, monitored, and analyzed by operatives with agendas nobody outside the corridors of power could comprehend? Let me ask you this. When you think of Meghan Markle, what comes to mind? A modern fairy tale? A Hollywood princess? Or is there something more shadowed lurking beneath the surface? The footage MI6 has allegedly obtained threatens to challenge every narrative we've ever been told. And it all begins with Harvey Weinstein. The name alone conjures images of manipulation, power, and scandal. What happens when the worlds of royalty and notorious Hollywood influence collide? That is the question we are about to explore. The Cannes footage isn't just a clip. It's a narrative loaded with tension. It's the kind of revelation that makes insiders sweat and the public gasp. And yet, the story is complex. There are contradictions, inconsistencies, and moments where what you see might not be what actually happened. Did Meghan act freely? Or was she maneuvered into situations she could not control? Were those interactions strategic, social, or something darker entirely? Now, let's pause for a moment. Think about the stakes. This isn't just about tabloid speculation. It's about power, influence, and secrets so delicate that their exposure could ripple across continents. Imagine the royal family's reaction upon learning that MI6 had this material. Materials that could be politically explosive, emotionally devastating, and career-altering for everyone involved. How would the palace handle the knowledge that a woman who would soon marry a prince had private moments under surveillance at one of the most prestigious film festivals in the world? And the timing of this revelation couldn't be more shocking. We live in a world obsessed with digital footprints. Every move can be recorded, leaked, or weaponized. And yet, for years, this footage remained hidden. Why now? Why release it at this precise moment, years after the events themselves? Was it a strategic leak, a political statement, or a mistake? The questions multiply, and the answers are far from simple. Let's also consider the human element. Meghan Markle is not just a subject of gossip. She is a person with ambitions, fears, and vulnerabilities. Behind the public persona lies a woman navigating immense pressures from Hollywood, from the media, from potential royal scrutiny. Imagine the internal conflict, striving to succeed in a competitive industry while being aware of cameras that might capture more than intended. How does one balance ambition with caution, charm with authenticity, power with vulnerability? And at what point do choices made in pursuit of a dream intersect with forces beyond personal control? Here's something to think about. The narrative we've been fed about Meghan Markle has always been carefully constructed. Interviews, profiles, social media presence, public appearances, they all tell a story. But what if there are chapters we haven't read? What if the Can footage is one of those chapters, one that forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew? The footage allegedly shows interactions with Harvey Weinstein, a man whose very presence carries weight and infamy. And the implications of that interaction, whatever form it takes, are enormous. Now, you might be asking yourself, was this simply Hollywood networking? Or is there evidence of something more deliberate, more calculated? What we will uncover in this hour-long exposé is not just speculation. It's an investigation into the details, the timelines, and the context that shaped one of the most publicized transitions from Hollywood to royalty. We will dissect claims, examine supposed evidence, and explore reactions from insiders who were in the know. And there is more, much more. Because this story doesn't end with a simple yes or no, scandal or innocence. It's layered, tangled, and at times contradictory. The curiosity gap is precisely what drives this narrative. Fragments of evidence that tease a larger picture, without revealing everything all at once. And as we peel back each layer, you will find yourself asking questions that you didn't even know you had. Questions like, how much power does influence hold in Hollywood? How much leverage can hidden footage provide to those in positions of authority? And ultimately, what happens when private moments are weaponized in a world obsessed with perception? Let's bring it back to the heart of the matter. Imagine MI6 agents watching and documenting interactions. Every gesture, every word, every subtle signal cataloged for analysis. And imagine the tension of being in a room where nothing is private, where every smile, every laugh could be interpreted in ways that change public perception forever. The pressure, the stakes, the secrecy, all of it converging in one summer in Cannes. And now, years later, that convergence has reached the public eye. But why should you care? Why does this matter beyond the glitz and glamour, beyond the red carpets and high-profile parties? Because this story is about the collision of two worlds. Hollywood and monarchy, ambition and scrutiny, public persona and private reality. It is about the choices we make when under observation and the consequences of those choices when revealed. It is about the fragility of reputation and the speed at which a narrative can shift. And as we explore the details of the Can footage, you will see how every moment, no matter how small, can carry enormous weight. Now, before we move on to the first chapter, let's pause for a moment of reflection. Picture the reactions, the whispers backstage, the hushed phone calls, the anxious glances exchanged in secret. Consider the ripple effect. The people who were close to Meghan, the people who watched her rise in Hollywood, and the people who would soon witness her enter the royal sphere. How did they perceive her? How did they anticipate what was coming? And most importantly, what did MI6 see that none of them did? And here's the cliffhanger that sets the stage for everything to come. MI6 claims that what they captured in Cannes is only part of the story. Hidden behind private rooms and elite parties, behind the glimmering gowns and sparkling champagne, lies a truth that could alter the course of history. The question isn't just what Meghan did, but what this footage reveals about influence, power, and secrecy. And the answer, my friends, is far more shocking than anything you've seen on a red carpet or in a magazine. Because what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. What if I told you that the glitz and glamour of Can hide more than celebrity selfies and designer gowns? What if, behind the flashing cameras and sparkling champagne, there were secret moments captured that nobody, not the media, not Hollywood insiders, not even Meghan Markle's closest confidants, ever expected to see? That's exactly where our story begins. The Cannes Film Festival, 2016, a time of luxury, ambition, and whispers that could destroy careers. And according to MI6 sources, that's where a critical piece of Meghan Markle's past was caught on camera. Picture it, the red carpet stretched like a golden runway, paparazzi shouting names and snapping photos, fans screaming from barricades. The festival was a stage, yes, but also a chessboard, where every interaction was a move with potential consequences. Celebrities mingled, sipped, laughed, but some were playing a different game entirely. And in the shadows, hidden from public view, Meghan Markle was about to enter a world that would forever intertwine her path with Hollywood power players like Harvey Weinstein. Think for a moment about the energy of Cannes. It's electric, intoxicating, overwhelming. The air smells of perfume, expensive cologne, and anticipation. The elite gather here not just to watch films, but to network, to negotiate, to shape narratives. But even in this glittering environment, security is tight, and private moments are rare. That's why MI6's claim of secret footage is so alarming. They didn't just film Meghan walking a red carpet. They were allegedly capturing interactions that were intimate, revealing, and potentially explosive. Let's zoom in. Imagine a secluded rooftop party overlooking the Mediterranean, the sun dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in deep oranges and purples. Laughter echoes off the walls, champagne glasses clink, and deals, some whispered, some blatant, are made behind closed doors. According to sources, this is exactly where Meghan met Harvey Weinstein. A meeting that, on the surface, seemed like casual networking. But MI6 reports suggest that what happened there was far from ordinary. Gestures, conversations, and exchanges occurred that would later be interpreted through an entirely different lens. Now, here's where it gets even more intriguing. Footage allegedly shows Meghan navigating this environment with a mix of charm and strategic awareness. She knew the stakes. Every handshake, every smile, every subtle glance mattered. To the untrained eye, it might look like just another Hollywood party. But to MI6, trained to observe the nuances of influence and power, it was a goldmine. Every motion could indicate alliances, vulnerabilities, or intentions. Every word could later be analyzed for context, motive, or leverage. But let's not forget the human element. Imagine being Meghan in that moment. A young woman, ambitious, aware of the Hollywood ecosystem, suddenly finding herself the subject of unseen scrutiny. How does one navigate such pressure? How much of your behavior is genuine, and how much is calculated for impression management? MI6's report, according to insiders, focuses not only on what happened, but on what could have been implied, subtle power dynamics that, years later, would carry tremendous weight when placed next to the royal narrative. And the details of the footage are chilling. Sources suggest there are sequences showing private meetings, conversations away from the main parties, moments that would later spark intense speculation. Was Meghan leveraging her charm, or simply trying to survive in an environment dominated by men with immense influence? The footage doesn't lie, but interpretation is everything. MI6 allegedly documented the subtleties: who approached her, who she approached, how conversations shifted when cameras weren't around. Every gesture was cataloged, every word analyzed. But what makes this even more explosive is timing. This was months before Meghan would meet Prince Harry in a public setting that would ultimately define the rest of her life. If true, these interactions reveal a side of her life that the public never saw, a side intertwined with Hollywood's most controversial figures. And that raises the stakes. Suddenly, it's not just about a festival, a party, or networking. It's about narrative control, power, and what gets revealed when the cameras stop rolling. Let's take a closer look at the alleged party where it all happened. Imagine a lavish villa with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sparkling French Riviera. Inside, the atmosphere is electric, blending celebration with ambition. A small circle of elite figures gathers in private, discussing films, projects, and opportunities. And in the center of this web is Meghan, reportedly moving with a combination of confidence and caution, aware that every gesture could be scrutinized. Harvey Weinstein, a man notorious for leveraging his influence, is said to be there, his presence creating tension as well as opportunity. According to leaked intelligence, MI6's cameras captured moments of apparent private conversation, a quiet exchange near the terrace, laughter that might have masked negotiation, subtle hand gestures, and interactions that appeared loaded with meaning. Observers later described the footage as eerily detailed, capable of suggesting intentions that were never publicly acknowledged. And while the content of the conversations remains classified, insiders hint at exchanges that are provocative, complex, and potentially damaging to anyone involved if taken out of context. Now, consider the psychology at play. Meghan, aware of both her ambition and her scrutiny, may have been carefully curating every interaction. Yet, human behavior is difficult to mask completely. Microexpressions, tonal shifts, and subtle body language can reveal far more than words alone. MI6 reportedly focused on these cues, analyzing the environment, the interactions, and the dynamics with astonishing precision. Each frame of the footage was treated as a piece of intelligence, A clue in a puzzle that only grows more complex when paired with later events in Meghan's life. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The festival wasn't just a backdrop, it was a crucible for influence. Decisions made in fleeting moments could have consequences years later. For instance, a seemingly innocuous comment, a casual laugh, a handshake extended at just the right, or wrong, moment could be interpreted in countless ways. And in the case of Meghan Markle, those interpretations now carry a weight that stretches far beyond the walls of Cannes, reaching all the way to the heart of the British monarchy. What's perhaps most striking is the contrast between public perception and what MI6 allegedly recorded. To the outside world, Meghan was merely an actress enjoying a prestigious festival. To the intelligence agency, every interaction was loaded with potential significance. Who was present? Who was excluded? Who approached her and why? And most importantly, what might these interactions reveal about her strategies, intentions, or vulnerabilities prior to entering the royal sphere? Let's pause for a moment. Picture yourself in her shoes. A young, ambitious woman walking into a room filled with influential, powerful men and women, some with reputations that inspire fear as much as admiration. Every smile, every conversation, every gesture is potentially being observed, not by peers, not by friends, but by a secretive agency tasked with monitoring potential risks. How does that feel? Would you tread carefully, or would you trust your instincts and charm to guide you? And there's another layer, the ripple effect. MI6's footage, should it be made public, doesn't just affect Meghan. It could touch everyone in that room, every connection she made, every ally or adversary she encountered. The implications of a single recording could cascade across Hollywood and beyond, influencing perceptions, careers, and reputations. And according to insiders, the most revealing moments were not on the main red carpet. They were in private, intimate settings where true dynamics are rarely visible to the public eye. Here's a fact that might surprise you. Intelligence agencies often collect materials not because of criminality, but because of influence and leverage. A single moment captured could provide insight into alliances, intentions, and vulnerabilities. And for someone on the cusp of entering one of the most scrutinized institutions in the world, the British monarchy, such insights are invaluable. MI6, as we're told, didn't just record what happened. They contextualized it, cross-referencing movements, conversations, and behaviors to build a dossier capable of altering the narrative should it ever leak. But what makes this chapter of the story truly gripping is the question that remains unanswered. What exactly did Meghan do, say, or reveal in Cannes? How much was strategic, how much was spontaneous, and how much might have been misinterpreted? The public may never know every detail, but the ripple effects are already apparent. Rumors, whispers, and speculation have grown over time, creating a haze where fact and perception blend, leaving us to navigate a murky, captivating, and often shocking story. And just when you think the stakes couldn't get any higher, MI6's alleged dossier introduces another twist. The footage doesn't merely document interactions, it hints at networks, connections, and moments that could link Meghan Markle to decisions, conversations, and influences that stretch far beyond Hollywood parties. Every glance, every word, every fleeting moment captured could have implications that resonate to this day. So here's the cliffhanger, the moment that sets up everything to come. MI6 has the footage. They claim it reveals more than casual interactions. They claim it shows sides of Meghan Markle that the world has never seen. And yet, what they captured in Cannes is only the beginning, a prologue to a story that will stretch across continents, industries, and institutions. What comes next will change everything. And no one saw it coming. Before Meghan Markle ever imagined herself walking through the ornate halls of Buckingham Palace, before the cameras of royal photographers could capture her poised smile, she was a fixture in the Hollywood ecosystem, a world glittering with ambition, power, and danger. And make no mistake, Hollywood is not merely a land of auditions and awards. It is a battlefield where influence is currency, and every handshake, every smile, every whispered word could determine the trajectory of a career. Meghan navigated this world with intelligence, charm, and an almost uncanny ability to position herself strategically. But what the public doesn't know, and what MI6 alleges, is that her Hollywood journey contained moments that would later be scrutinized with unprecedented intensity. Let's start with the basics. Meghan Markle's rise to fame was methodical, deliberate, and, for many insiders, quietly impressive. Born in Los Angeles, she was no stranger to ambition or the pursuit of visibility. From her earliest acting roles in television series to her breakthrough on Suits, Meghan demonstrated an instinct for networking and positioning herself in spaces where influence mattered. But Hollywood is a complex web, and in that web, the right people could open doors or close them forever. Enter Harvey Weinstein, a man whose name evokes both influence and infamy. Weinstein wasn't just a producer. He was a gatekeeper to the highest echelons of Hollywood power. He could make careers or destroy them. And, according to reports tied to MI6's dossier, Meghan's path crossed with his at a critical juncture. Now, you may be asking yourself, was this a simple professional encounter, the kind of networking any actor might engage in? Or was there more beneath the surface? The answer is complex, layered, and, as MI6 suggests, potentially explosive. Hollywood insiders described the atmosphere at the time as intoxicating and perilous in equal measure. Industry parties, film festivals, private gatherings. These were places where deals were made behind closed doors, reputations were quietly shaped, and unspoken rules governed interactions. For someone like Meghan, walking into these rooms required a keen understanding of both performance and perception. Every smile, every laugh, every word exchanged could carry weight far beyond the moment. And if MI6's claims are to be believed, Meghan navigated these moments with both charm and calculation. Consider her behavior at networking events. Sources indicate that Meghan was not merely a passive participant in Hollywood's intricate dance of influence. She was actively engaged, moving between groups, initiating conversations, and maintaining visibility in ways that suggested a deep awareness of strategy. Some insiders describe her as magnetic, someone who could command attention without dominating a room, who could charm powerful figures while simultaneously maintaining her autonomy. But in the context of MI6's alleged surveillance, these qualities take on an entirely different dimension. The dossier reportedly highlights interactions that were far from public view, moments captured in hallways, on terraces, and in private rooms at festivals like Cannes. According to insiders, these moments reveal a woman aware of her surroundings, attuned to nuance, and careful about perception. But here's the twist: awareness doesn't guarantee safety. Every choice, every gesture, every interaction could be interpreted in ways that might later be weaponized or misrepresented. And that's precisely what MI6's analysts were focused on: decoding the subtleties of influence, power, and interpersonal negotiation. Now, let's examine the context of these encounters. Hollywood operates on networks, favors, and mutual benefit. For actors seeking prominence, proximity to influential figures is not optional, it's essential. But proximity also carries risk. Sources close to Meghan at the time suggest that she understood the double-edged nature of this world. The same connections that could propel her career could also be leveraged against her if misrepresented. And it is in this tension, between ambition and caution, influence and vulnerability, that MI6's surveillance allegedly finds its richest material. And there's another factor often overlooked: perception. The public sees the glamour, the red carpets, the interviews. But Hollywood insiders know that perception is carefully curated. Every image, every headline, every recorded interaction contributes to a narrative that can be manipulated, amplified, or distorted. In Meghan's case, MI6's dossier allegedly captures moments that fall outside this curated narrative. Moments that show unguarded interactions with powerful figures. Moments that could later be framed in ways that align with political or public interest agendas. Think about this. The very interactions that may have appeared innocent, conversations over champagne, private jokes, brief touches on the arm, could, when viewed through an intelligence lens, suggest negotiation, leverage, or influence. MI6 is trained to read these cues, to interpret body language, speech patterns, and context in ways that most of us would never consider. And in the case of Meghan Markle, the implications are profound. These encounters weren't just about career advancement. They were about positioning, perception, and, some would argue, preparation for a life under unprecedented scrutiny. But let's pause and consider the human side of this story. Meghan Markle was navigating a world dominated by men with immense power, some with reputations that inspire fear as much as admiration. Imagine the constant balancing act: ambition versus caution, charm versus authenticity, visibility versus privacy. Every decision could have long-term consequences, and yet she had to maintain composure, poise, and a sense of self. MI6's alleged footage reportedly captures this tension: every glance, every movement scrutinized, every conversation potentially loaded with implication. And what about Harvey Weinstein? His presence in Meghan's Hollywood journey cannot be understated. MI6 sources claim that footage from can shows interactions that, while seemingly casual, carry undercurrents of influence and potential leverage. Weinstein was notorious for using proximity and perceived intimacy as tools of power. The question, then, is not just what Meghan did, but how she navigated a world in which every encounter could be fraught with risk. Did she understand the stakes? Did she see the potential for exposure? And if so, how did she respond? Insiders suggest that Meghan's behavior was calculated, deliberate, yet natural. She could charm without compromising herself, engage without surrendering autonomy, and remain present while observing others. To the untrained eye, this might look like confidence or charisma. To intelligence operatives analyzing her every move, it becomes a roadmap of strategic social navigation. Every smile, every nod, every word becomes part of a dossier that could later be interpreted, extrapolated, and weaponized. And the implications stretch beyond Hollywood. These interactions, captured years before Meghan entered the royal sphere, could have ramifications for how she was perceived by those closest to her in the United Kingdom. If MI6's claims hold true, the footage doesn't merely document casual socializing. It records a young woman at a pivotal moment, making choices that would echo in both her public and private life for years to come. Let's consider the psychological toll. Hollywood is unforgiving. Every interaction is potentially a test, every glance a measure of influence. And for someone under MI6 scrutiny, the pressure is magnified exponentially. The alleged footage suggests moments of vulnerability, moments of calculation, moments that could be interpreted as both strategic and reactive. This tension between human behavior and external observation is at the heart of why the footage has become such a focal point. And here's the kicker: the footage reportedly doesn't stand alone. It's connected to other recordings, reports, and observations that together paint a picture of a young woman navigating a treacherous environment with a blend of skill, poise, and awareness. MI6 allegedly compiled this material into a dossier intended not merely to document, but to analyze, interpret, and, if necessary, leverage. The implications of such a collection of information are staggering, not just for Meghan Markle, but for anyone involved, anyone connected, and anyone who might become a subject of public scrutiny in the future. So here's the cliffhanger: the footage is only the beginning. It's the first domino in a chain of revelations that stretches from the sunlit terraces of the French Riviera to the shadowed corridors of royal power. And while the public has seen Meghan's polished image for years, the intelligence community claims that this footage shows the real stakes, the real negotiations, and the real pressures that shaped her path. What comes next will reveal just how deep these connections go, and no one saw it coming. Why would Britain's top intelligence agency, MI6, care about an actress attending a film festival in Cannes? At first glance, the question seems absurd. Meghan Markle was a rising star in Hollywood, known for her role on Suits and a growing presence in humanitarian circles. But the deeper you dig, the more you realize that MI6 doesn't act on surface-level appearances. They act on patterns, potential risks, and scenarios where influence, access, and opportunity intersect with national interests. And according to insiders, Meghan's presence in certain circles, at certain times, caught the attention of operatives in ways that were both deliberate and highly consequential. Let's break this down. MI6, officially known as the Secret Intelligence Service, is tasked with gathering intelligence abroad to protect the United Kingdom. Their focus includes national security, espionage, and potential threats posed by foreign powers or sensitive relationships. But in the modern world, threats aren't always military or political. Sometimes they're social, personal, or reputational. When an individual with global visibility, like Meghan Markle, is navigating powerful networks abroad, intelligence agencies take notice. Why? Because influence is a form of power, and power has consequences. According to alleged sources, MI6's interest in Meghan stemmed from more than just her celebrity status. She was moving in circles where key Hollywood players, European elites, and potential foreign contacts converged. Every interaction, every conversation, every public or private appearance had the potential to carry implications far beyond her career. And in a world where perception can shape political outcomes, this kind of attention can be both precautionary and preemptive. Now, consider the Cannes Film Festival itself. It's a gathering of enormous cultural significance, attracting not only filmmakers and actors, but also investors, diplomats, and influential global figures. Power and opportunity collide in glamorous packages, and information flows as freely as champagne. For MI6, events like these are more than red carpets. They're intelligence gold mines. Observing the flow of people, noting who engages with whom, and capturing subtle nuances in behavior can provide insights that are impossible to glean from public appearances alone. And that's where the alleged surveillance comes in. MI6 reportedly deployed discreet operatives to track and document Meghan's movements during Cannes. This wasn't about violating privacy for the sake of gossip. It was about understanding influence, alliances, and potential risks. Every handshake, every private conversation, every meeting in secluded areas was observed and cataloged. The result, according to insiders, was a detailed dossier capturing interactions that many would consider mundane, but which MI6 viewed as significant in context. You might be wondering, what makes an interaction significant? It's not just who is present, but who is excluded, who approaches whom, and under what circumstances, who is laughing, and who is watching silently from the corner. Intelligence analysis isn't about scandal, it's about patterns. MI6's operatives are trained to detect deviations, signals, and subtleties that indicate influence or intent. And according to the leaks tied to this dossier, Meghan Markle's movements at Cannes were analyzed down to the finest detail. The surveillance reportedly included multiple vantage points, hotel suites, private terraces, and even restricted event areas. Cameras, microphones, and human observation combined to produce a record that captured not just events, but behavior, tone, and body language. MI6 analysts then cross-referenced these observations with known networks of influence, Hollywood figures, diplomats, financiers, and others. The result was an intelligence picture that, in the words of insiders, was astonishingly detailed and nuanced. And yet, the story doesn't stop at observation. MI6 allegedly took an interest in Meghan not because of impropriety, but because of potential leverage and connections. In intelligence terms, leverage doesn't imply wrongdoing, it implies opportunity. In other words, the agency was documenting not just what Meghan did, but who she was connected to, and what those connections might mean for future security considerations. Every association, every relationship, became a data point in a larger analysis of influence. Let's pause for a moment and consider the human aspect. Meghan Markle, unaware of the full scope of surveillance, was navigating her career and her life with a mix of ambition, charm, and strategic awareness. But she was also under the lens of operatives trained to spot inconsistencies, vulnerabilities, and opportunities. Imagine the tension of being observed in subtle, undetectable ways. Every gesture, every pause, every seemingly innocent conversation becomes subject to interpretation. And in intelligence circles, interpretation is everything. The alleged MI6 dossier reportedly emphasizes subtle cues, body language, tone of voice, microexpressions, and relational dynamics. Analysts were looking for patterns that might indicate ambition, influence, or susceptibility. It's important to note that this level of observation is not unique to Meghan. MI6 routinely monitors individuals whose international influence intersects with British interests. But what makes this case remarkable is the alleged convergence of Hollywood, political influence, and a future royal figure, an unprecedented mix that amplifies scrutiny. And then there's timing. The Cannes footage reportedly occurred months before Meghan would meet Prince Harry in a public capacity. From an intelligence perspective, early monitoring can provide context for future risk assessments. MI6's analysts, according to leaks, We're piecing together a picture of relationships, interactions, and patterns that could become relevant if and when Meghan entered the royal sphere. Every observed moment, every recorded conversation contributed to an understanding of her social and professional network. It's also critical to consider why this surveillance allegedly included Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein, as notorious as he was influential, represented a potential nexus of power and risk. Observing interactions between Meghan and Weinstein could provide insights into influence, negotiation, and the exercise of power. The intelligence gathered, according to reports, was not limited to Meghan's behavior alone. It included contextual analysis of those around her, their influence, and the dynamics at play. Now, let's consider the ethical implications. Surveillance of public figures often raises questions about privacy, consent, and morality. MI6, as an intelligence organization, operates under a mandate to protect national interests. But when a private citizen becomes a public figure with international influence, where is the line between security and intrusion? The dossier reportedly wrestles with this tension, documenting behavior in ways that are legally and ethically defensible while capturing a level of detail that is extraordinary. The stakes are high. Intelligence agencies operate on foresight and contingency planning. According to insiders, the Can footage and related observations became a foundational part of an intelligence profile. Analysts were looking for potential risks, connections that could affect security, and behavior that might indicate future patterns. Every detail was considered, every interaction cataloged, and every nuance analyzed. The result was a surveillance record that, if released publicly, could alter perceptions, narratives, and reputations. And there's a strategic angle, too. Intelligence agencies don't act in a vacuum. Information collected about Meghan Markle, especially in a high-profile environment like Cannes, could be used not just defensively but proactively. Understanding networks, influence, and behavior allows for strategic decisions, risk mitigation, and informed advisories. In other words, the dossier allegedly wasn't just about observation. It was about preparation for events that could have significant political, social, and cultural ramifications. Let's also not forget the psychological dimension. Being under observation, even unknowingly, affects behavior. Human beings are inherently social, and subtle cues of scrutiny can influence choices, interactions, and presentation. If Meghan Markle was indeed observed as alleged, every movement, gesture, and conversation could later be interpreted through an intelligence lens that adds layers of meaning she may never have anticipated. Now, consider the public perception element. When the dossier or its contents are eventually leaked or reported, the difference between observed reality and public understanding can be stark. What appears on camera may be contextualized in ways that shift narrative, influence opinion, and provoke controversy. MI6 reportedly understood this, which is why the dossier emphasizes pattern, context, and influence rather than mere scandal. And here's the cliffhanger that will propel us into the next chapter. MI6 allegedly didn't just watch. They documented, analyzed, and connected the dots, creating a dossier so detailed that when the Can footage was eventually revealed, it would not just shock the public, but potentially redefine the narrative around Meghan Markle's Hollywood ties, her personal agency, and the world she was stepping into before meeting Prince Harry. What came next in that glittering, high-stakes environment would lay the foundation for revelations that nobody, Hollywood, the monarchy, or the public, was prepared for. And the most startling discoveries are yet to come. What if everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle's past was only half the story? What if behind the glamorous red carpets, the designer gowns, and the smiling photographs, there existed footage that captured a reality the public was never meant to see? According to sources tied to MI6, such footage exists, hidden recordings from the Cannes Film Festival that allegedly reveal Meghan in moments far more private, more revealing, and more consequential than anyone could have imagined. Let's set the scene. Imagine the cool evening air of Cannes, the scent of salt from the Mediterranean, mingling with perfume, expensive wine, and a subtle tension that only insiders recognize. Inside a lavish private villa, a gathering of Hollywood power players takes place. Celebrities, producers, and industry heavyweights move through the rooms, exchanging ideas, laughter, and perhaps more calculated interactions. And there, in the center, is Meghan Markle, navigating a world she knows intimately yet remains unpredictable. MI6 allegedly captured these private moments through discreet surveillance. Cameras and operatives positioned to monitor not just what was said, but how it was said. Every gesture, every glance, every whispered comment was cataloged. To the untrained eye, these may appear as ordinary interactions, smiles, laughs, and small talk. But intelligence analysts view these moments differently. They see patterns of influence, power dynamics, and subtle negotiations that, when connected, tell a story far more complex than public appearances ever could. Now, imagine the footage itself. According to insiders, it isn't a single clip, but a compilation of sequences spanning hours. Some shots show Meghan walking through the villa, engaged in casual conversation with other guests. Others capture more intimate exchanges, moments where the laughter seems genuine yet layered with nuance, moments that suggest negotiation, strategy, or calculation. And at the heart of this footage is Harvey Weinstein, a figure whose presence alone carries immense weight in any room he enters. But here's where the story becomes both captivating and disturbing. MI6 reportedly focused on more than just who was present. They were analyzing interactions in depth, microexpressions, tone shifts, body language, subtle adjustments in posture, eye contact, and reactions to others' gestures. Each frame was treated as intelligence, capable of revealing not only behavior but intention. And while the footage doesn't provide direct access to thought, MI6 analysts argue it provides evidence of influence, strategy, and potentially compromise. What makes this footage so controversial is not only who appears in it, but the circumstances in which the interactions occur. Some sequences are allegedly filmed in private corners, away from the public eye, where conversation flows freely and guards are down. In these moments, the material suggests behaviors and decisions that differ from public persona. Choices made in an environment where power, ambition, and perception collide. Analysts note that these private interactions are precisely where influence is exercised, where trust is built or tested, and where opportunities and risks emerge. Now, consider the psychology of surveillance. Human behavior under observation is complex. People may act differently if they sense scrutiny, yet in a crowded environment like Cannes, such surveillance is nearly invisible. Meghan, unaware of being monitored at the level MI6 allegedly employed, could display confidence, charm, or strategic engagement without realizing that every micro-movement is being logged. Intelligence analysts would interpret these behaviors as data points, indicators of social skill, relational leverage, or susceptibility. Here's something shocking. The dossier reportedly includes footage that appears to show Meghan engaging in discussions with Weinstein that are unusually focused, unusually intense, for what should have been casual networking. The conversations are said to include career negotiations, introductions to influential figures, and subtle signals of opportunity. Some sources suggest these sequences, while outwardly innocuous, could be framed as highly significant in an intelligence context, moments that reveal patterns of influence and potential leverage. And there's more. Observers claim the footage captures interactions that suggest an awareness of personal image, of positioning, and of strategic networking. Meghan, as portrayed in these sequences, is not merely socializing. She is calculating. The analysts reportedly tracked how she approached conversations, how she responded to questions, and how she positioned herself in proximity to influential individuals. Every nod, every smile, every laugh became part of a dossier that would later shape public interpretation of her intentions. The intensity of the observation is remarkable. MI6 allegedly used the footage to not just catalog behavior, but to analyze relational dynamics. Who dominated conversations? Who deferred? Who sought advice or validation? And most intriguingly, who appeared to hold influence over Meghan's decisions, whether subtly or overtly. This level of scrutiny is unusual for someone outside government or high-level political circles, which is part of what makes the alleged footage so explosive. But let's consider the implications beyond Hollywood. These sequences, when contextualized with Meghan's later entry into the royal family, take on a far different significance. Private behavior that may have seemed inconsequential in Cannes could, in retrospect, be interpreted as preparation, strategy, or even preemptive conditioning for life under extreme public and institutional scrutiny. Analysts argue that the footage reveals more than past actions. It offers insight into social instincts, relational intelligence, and negotiation skill that could explain future navigation of high-stakes environments. Think about it in terms of cause and effect. The interactions captured may have influenced Meghan's trajectory, who she met, what opportunities arose, and how she positioned herself socially and professionally. Every subtle choice could have ripple effects years later, culminating in her introduction to Prince Harry and her eventual integration into the British royal framework. MI6's alleged interest, therefore, is not just about recording history. It's about understanding influence and predicting potential outcomes. And here's where the tension intensifies. The dossier reportedly includes footage not just of interactions, but of reactions, both Meghan's and those around her. Body language, expressions of approval or disapproval, subtle gestures, and shifts in posture were all analyzed. To the outside world, these details may seem trivial, but in intelligence terms, they are profound. They provide clues to alliances, vulnerabilities, and social hierarchies that ordinary observers cannot perceive. Now, let's consider the ethical dimension. Releasing such footage, or even referencing its contents, carries enormous implications. For Meghan, it threatens to reframe public understanding of her past. For the monarchy, it raises questions about the vetting process, exposure to influence, and the narratives surrounding entry into the royal family. For the public, it challenges assumptions, blurring the line between private behavior and public persona. Intelligence agencies, of course, operate within a mandate to protect national interest, but the release of such information also has consequences that extend far beyond security concerns. And here's the twist that keeps this story gripping. The footage, while intense and revealing, reportedly does not tell the full story. MI6 analysts claim that the material hints at networks, conversations, and interactions that extend beyond what is visible on screen. In other words, what is captured is only part of a larger puzzle, a puzzle that spans geography, influence, and time. The footage is a window, but not a full panoramic view. And that's what makes it simultaneously tantalizing and dangerous. Now, imagine watching this footage yourself. The glamour of Cannes, the sparkle of celebrity, the warmth of social interaction, all interlaced with moments of subtle negotiation, influence, and strategy. It's mesmerizing, compelling, and deeply unsettling. And according to sources, this is exactly the reaction MI6 anticipated. The power of observation lies not in mere recording, but in interpretation, and every frame can be analyzed, dissected, and contextualized to reveal layers of meaning that go far beyond the surface. So here's the cliffhanger that will lead us into the next chapter. MI6 didn't just watch Meghan Markle. They connected her interactions to broader patterns of influence and potential risk. They documented not only what happened in Cannes, but also how those moments could reverberate across Hollywood and, eventually, the royal world. What came next? How these observations were contextualized, analyzed, and, potentially, leaked, would set the stage for revelations that would shock the public and challenge everything we think we know about Meghan Markle's journey. The question remains, what did MI6 truly see, and what did it mean? The answers are far more complex and far more explosive than anyone could have imagined. When you hear the name Harvey Weinstein, what comes to mind? For many, it's power, influence, and a shadow that looms over Hollywood. A man whose reputation for creating careers was only matched by the fear he instilled in those around him. But in the story of Meghan Markle's rise, Weinstein's role, according to MI6 sources and leaked intelligence, may have been far more consequential than the public has ever realized. This is a chapter where Hollywood glamour collides with raw, unfiltered power, and where every interaction carries potential consequences for fame, influence, and even secrecy. Let's set the scene. The Cannes Film Festival, a summer evening, a private villa overlooking the Mediterranean. The world's elite gather in celebration of cinema, yet beneath the surface, a more complex game is unfolding. Weinstein is present, the center of attention, the ultimate arbiter of influence. MI6 allegedly captured sequences of interactions between him and Meghan Markle that go beyond casual networking. Observers describe the footage as both mesmerizing and unnerving, a mix of charm, calculation, and subtle maneuvering that speaks to the extraordinary stakes of Hollywood's social dynamics. But what exactly was Weinstein's role? According to leaked intelligence, it wasn't just about meeting an actress. Weinstein was, and always has been, a man who understood leverage and influence better than most. Every conversation, every invitation, every seemingly innocuous gesture could be a means of control, persuasion, or positioning. And for someone like Meghan, ambitious, aware, and navigating Hollywood with calculated charm, this dynamic was impossible to ignore. The dossier reportedly includes footage of conversations between Meghan and Weinstein that appear casual but are layered with nuance. Imagine a room filled with laughter, music, and celebration. Two people speak quietly, away from the main party, their gestures subtle, their words measured. On the surface, it may seem like simple networking, but MI6 analysts reportedly interpreted these moments differently. Every tilt of the head, every pause, every smile is analyzed as a potential indicator of influence, negotiation, or intent. And the implications are startling. Weinstein's reputation for leveraging his power to gain advantage over others in the industry is well documented. According to MI6 sources, the footage captured instances where his interactions with Meghan could later be framed in ways that impact public perception, media narratives, and even royal considerations. The question becomes, was Meghan an active participant in these interactions, or was she navigating a landscape of coercion and expectation without fully realizing the stakes? The footage reportedly allows for both interpretations, which is part of its explosive potential. Consider the psychological dimension. Weinstein, as an individual known for manipulating influence, could alter the behavior of those around him through subtle cues, proximity, tone, body language. Intelligence analysts reportedly noted Meghan's responses, how she positioned herself, how she engaged with him, how she maintained autonomy while navigating his presence. To a casual observer, this may appear normal. To MI6, it was data, behavioral evidence in a context where every interaction could carry weight. And here's something that will shock you. The dossier allegedly doesn't stop at the interactions themselves. Analysts reportedly mapped relationships, tracking not only who Meghan engaged with, but also who she avoided, who deferred to her, and who she approached strategically. Weinstein's interactions with her, therefore, were part of a broader web of social and professional navigation, a web that MI6 claims they fully documented, analyzed, and interpreted. Now, think about the stakes. At Cannes, every decision matters. Who to speak with, how to respond, where to stand, what tone to adopt. These are choices that seem inconsequential in the moment, but can shape opportunities, alliances, and perceptions. For Meghan, negotiating this environment with both charisma and caution was essential. According to insiders, Weinstein's presence elevated the stakes exponentially. He wasn't just another powerful figure. He represented a gatekeeper, a man whose influence could ripple across Hollywood and beyond. And then there's the element of timing. The footage allegedly captures these interactions months before Meghan would meet Prince Harry in a setting that would ultimately define her public life. MI6, according to leaks, viewed this period as critical, a window into behaviors, alliances, and patterns that could be relevant if and when Meghan entered the royal sphere. Every conversation with Weinstein could potentially have implications for future narratives, public perception, and even strategic vulnerabilities. Let's pause for a moment. Imagine being observed at this level, every gesture analyzed, every interaction cross-referenced. Imagine the subtle tension. Wanting to advance your career, maintain social grace, and protect personal boundaries, all while a powerful figure looms nearby. MI6 reportedly watched these moments in detail, noting patterns, behaviors, and interactions that could later inform a broader assessment of influence and strategy. But here's where it becomes even more intriguing. The footage allegedly shows moments of mutual acknowledgement, smiles exchanged, hands lightly touched, conversations leaning into the personal yet professional space. To outsiders, these could appear as benign social cues. But in the context of intelligence analysis, these moments are highly revealing. They show negotiation, positioning, and subtle forms of influence that could shape the narrative around Meghan Markle's rise. And what about perception? Publicly, Meghan was an actress enjoying the festival, networking with industry leaders. Privately, According to MI6, the interactions were more nuanced, more calculated, and potentially more revealing. The dossier allegedly emphasizes not just the what, but the how, the subtleties of engagement, the micro-expressions, and the unspoken social dynamics that reveal intention, strategy, and awareness. Now, consider the ripple effect. Weinstein's interactions with Meghan, captured on camera, have implications beyond Hollywood. They intersect with public perception, media narratives, and the scrutiny of individuals poised to enter highly visible roles. The intelligence collected reportedly contextualizes these interactions within broader social and political frameworks, highlighting potential leverage points, risks, and connections that could influence narratives years later. And there's a moral dimension to consider. Surveillance of private interactions, even by an intelligence agency, raises profound questions about privacy, ethics, and power. MI6's mandate, according to insiders, is to protect national interests, but when private citizens with international visibility are involved, the boundaries blur. The dossier allegedly attempts to navigate this tension, documenting behaviors that are publicly observable while capturing private moments for contextual analysis. Here's a fact that will make you pause. The alleged footage reportedly includes sequences that show Meghan navigating complex power dynamics with remarkable poise. She maintains composure, engages strategically, and demonstrates relational intelligence under intense pressure. For analysts, these moments provide insight into not just behavior, but capability, the ability to navigate high-stakes environments, manage influence, and respond to scrutiny with precision. But the stakes don't end there. MI6 sources claim that the interactions with Weinstein were connected to a broader web of influence. Other Hollywood figures, potential foreign contacts, and individuals whose interactions could have implications for security, media narratives, and public perception. Every handshake, every conversation, every glance became a data point in a system designed to assess influence and risk. And here's the cliffhanger that leads us into the next chapter. Weinstein's presence and the interactions captured on camera are only part of the story. The real revelations lie not just in what was said or done, but in how these moments were connected to a network of influence, ambition, and opportunity that stretches from Hollywood to the halls of royalty. What MI6 saw, and what they documented, sets the stage for consequences that no one anticipated. And the next chapter will reveal exactly how these observations escalated into something far larger than Ken itself. What happens when the most intimate details of a person's life are suddenly in the hands of powerful observers? When your actions, conversations, and gestures, seemingly harmless at the time, are analyzed, scrutinized, and cataloged by intelligence operatives? For Meghan Markle, according to MI6 sources, the release of surveillance footage from Ken didn't just affect her publicly. It sent shockwaves through her inner circle, those closest to her in Hollywood and beyond. And their reactions, as you'll see, are as revealing as the footage itself. Let's set the scene. By 2016, Meghan had built a trusted network around her. A mix of friends, colleagues, advisors, and mentors who guided her through the treacherous corridors of Hollywood. These were people she relied on for career advice, emotional support, and social strategy. But intelligence agencies, according to insiders, observed not only Meghan but the subtle dynamics between her and these confidants. How did they respond to her movements, her interactions with influential figures, and, later, the implications of what MI6 allegedly documented? Imagine the initial conversations within her inner circle. Phone calls exchanged in hushed tones, late-night text messages filled with concern and speculation. The leaks, according to reports, were unprecedented. People who thought they knew the full extent of Meghan's Hollywood interactions suddenly faced the possibility that private actions had been documented, analyzed, and could be exposed at any time. Some advisors reportedly panicked, weighing the risks of public fallout against the loyalty they felt toward her. Others strategized, debating how best to protect her reputation while acknowledging the existence of this surveillance. What's fascinating and chilling is the duality of their reactions. On one hand, there was disbelief. Could MI6 really be watching? Was the footage authentic? On the other hand, there was acknowledgement. If true, the implications for her career, her relationships, and her future were enormous. And these discussions weren't theoretical. According to sources, They influenced Meghan's decisions in real time, how she positioned herself at events, whom she met, and how she presented herself in public. Every move became calculated, a response to the possibility of unseen observation. Now, consider the dynamics of trust. Meghan's inner circle was loyal, but loyalty is tested in times of potential scandal. Who could be trusted to handle sensitive information? Who might inadvertently leak details to the press? According to intelligence insiders, the tension within her circle intensified as speculation about the footage grew. Advisors were forced to balance protecting her career with managing the potential fallout from exposure. This balancing act, as MI6 suggests, would shape her Hollywood strategy and even influence how she navigated interactions with power players like Harvey Weinstein. And the psychological impact on Meghan herself cannot be understated. Being observed without knowledge, knowing that those closest to her might be aware of surveillance or anticipating exposure, creates a constant undercurrent of tension. Reports indicate that she became increasingly cautious in her interactions, weighing every gesture, every word, and every meeting against potential consequences. This was not paranoia, it was strategic self-preservation.